Hello, America. Everything you hear in the news is about a syntax trap that is involved with it. Worse, but also involved with a vertical and horizontal database, illusion stacking, identity theft / fraud method that is keeping and having kept roles with all identity ground locations. Identities, formally, informally, and other. And this is where and how we are syntax nature as identity. And this is where and how they recorded, propagated, self-valued as victims to be defended as victim predators, propagated as fact treatment styles of positive and negative, making allegations against that are criminal insidious natures of positive and negative treatments, that are simultaneously reliant upon self-valued only having been identity thefts, roles, to all locations, areas, and states. So there are people I barely know of, and at all, I only know them through other people. The only context I know them in was with them roles with investigations, investigators, and vetting identities, as is actually recorded, with locations crimes with the interbranch and the foreign in collusion, and overt criminal enterprises, and all associated with like that. Like the prisons associated in the prison systems, interstates, and worse than interstates, and worse than just internations. Now these are all kinds of medical organized crime roles, also thematic too, like the crime methods that are evidences, where and how the interbranch has investigations, investigators, and vetting, fact treatment, nature, reception, in collusion with themselves, in collusion with and as worse than they realized since everyone was a kid. There was a breaching method that effectively sickly keeps each individual, no matter who you are, a victim reaction nature. Nature as identity. Identity as its simultaneous relationship to three natures of invisible but still discernible positive. Negative, for example, that and how slavery could only cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. That's in demonstration of the identity of positive / S that will only stay positive unto itself. All exceptions in exception nature, such as force space nature transfer, are in demonstration of it. But see, now we are engineered as what is syntactical, all exceptions in exception nature employed, other. So we have a bunch of people associated with my town, with Trinity College, that are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts on my street. Now there's an officer with judges and prosecutors and with police forms who have forging and switching names crime roles, so they can keep forcing people before their locations to fabricate audio and video further. Self-valuing roles with that being done and having been done, interages of campuses and natures of them through time. These are also people leading up to the World Trade Center attack and since with the investigators and the investigations of that, also criminally foreign influenced, to maintain what is manifest World Trade Center in Washington, that is intercampuses, roles with a vertical and horizontal database organized crime method, that is also an identity theft method. So all the private people tied to the, there's a Sub-Bigerio, I only know him from context. Strangers sought me out to make confessions, we recorded roles with this. Now the judges, various natures of courts, they say things out of sequence to pretend they said other, while they have been fabricating audio and video, while they have been roles with locations, crimes with Facebook employed involved with child abuses, elderly abuses, on off campuses, treatments of positive and negative and of people's identities and of good and bad that are criminally foreign influenced from off campuses. Then that maintains self-value, how this has always been from off campuses, maintaining on off it further and further needing to hide lie progressions. And manifests as syntax, fact-keeping nature, styles, and natures that value all the ways they prevent the short words of people from being spoke and the nature of the law from being followed. So, for example, when they're telling lies to themselves and to others, and with physical delusions, when they make opinions about our experts know, the people with the most knowledge about what happened with the with Boston Tea Party. That was all fake sides of correlation natures, simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive trinity. Again, with two identities of sequence nature further, if you watch my video, Anthony Wall. This is how to think. So we had people, experts involved with psychology originally and still. Roles with databases that no one's looking at because they're medical. They're fabricating fake. They're attaching little kids to fake ties to doctors through time. They're spreading lies and rumors and things with the news media simultaneously with them. They're also pretending we're talking about debatable things after the proofs of it are the evidences. That also show that and how originally and still we had only evident criminally foreign influenced evidence reception natures. Criminally foreign influenced human fact-keeping nature as criminal and seditious natures of positive treatments, and of sick fake justice, fake proper treatments of negative. So I know what you're saying when you say prejudice, but that's not what it is. It's they're preventing the short words, the nature of the law from being followed. And these are black and white leaders to get in collusion. This is every opinion nature when they make opinions about what slavery was about. It's about a predicate X delivery system method. If you want to debate that, it's about a breaching method. If you want to debate that, you're going to demonstrate criminally foreign influence premises treatments, sequence treatments, finite, active, progressive, the value of that treatments, identity treatment, semi-nature, complete nature, relationship to itself. See, I would have been a doctor by now, but there are the roles with intercampuses of each age and nature connected, sustained predicate acts. And then now the branch of the government are kept, needing to pretend their integrity. While this breaching method keeps actually recorded all these proofs and demonstrations that they are not. So there are a whole bunch of buildings next to Fox Connecticut News that are involved with a whole bunch of people interbranch from my town. That's in Hartford, Connecticut, one of their locations in downtown Hartford. Now there's a church there that has people associated with it. And with the opinions, everyone's speaking through each other. Everyone wants and needs to have restricted conversations. Especially because and then they make over allegations. They're using positive treatments of other people's identities, where and how we have juxtaposed natures of organized crime with the kid that they have no rights for. But they're using the criminally foreign influence in sick readings of statutes of precedence and our self-valuing how that's only been. As victims, not by accident. Specifically for their reactions and then their defenses of the reactions of it. Having to self-value how only criminal and seditious natures of narratives have described what the Boston Tea Party was actually about. Has described the identity of volume S/S that identity is about. As an increasing identity of volume as value as nature / nature as value simultaneously. It wouldn't be hard for you to understand what I'm saying. These aren't just the short words. The short words, I'm asking to talk about how the police forms have been forging names and switching names. All this time, you see, it's a crime method that the news media confessed, recorded, demonstrated roles with, keeping propagated and exploiting the propagation of how they make the police one thing. Like it's only those, which they have the phrase bad apple, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with our interstate justice departments and courts of each age and nature. Of each type and nature and location. This is all identity of the ground locations, all were victims. Propagated by this breaching method to positive and negative treatments, identity treatments, fact treatments, truth treatments that couldn't be defended and afford the short words or the long words of that identity of truth distinct from all others. That which is true always, not denying any exceptions nature, because it is itself. To have the perfect world valued, forsaken in sustained ways. Now the interbranch have been needing to lie, could hide sequence shifts, so they can pretend passions and emotions against things that I might have said that would hurt people's feelings. But they're preventing my demonstration of what is actually recorded, because you can't record the police, but you can record them recording themselves. And this is where we are obligated to do that. This is where and how they never had, with the overt criminal enterprises and with everyone's opinions in collusion, and all private in collusion, preventing mandated law, stealing people's identities, identity theft roles, / identity theft roles. The sequence shifts reveal this. They have Wethersfield schools further recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts and natures with the kids, juxtaposed natures. They have types of reactions to types of crimes manifest, studies of them manifest, in collusion with what forces them not told on. These bonded roles and natures of organized crime with good uses of them, pretended just legitimate. For example, like they have to catch a predator. They're trying to in other words, when we debate things also in courts, or trying to talk to police, as they pretend, they say on the news, they're leaving out how if they pretend to be, we'll come and speak with the community. And if all investigators and vetting identities, so many ways where are recorded originally and still uses of fact treatment nature, uses of all identity of the ground locations, let alone each person. Every time something needs to be described in a case, in a deposition, anywhere, over the phone, through the mail, they're needing to describe identity of the ground locations. They've been using phenomena with database stacking with time impositions, where each individual of the human species of volume was already forced to entertain criminal and seditious natures of positive treatments and negative treatments, and reliance upon them to keep her, each age and nature, each identity of the ground locations, identities, means to connect simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive. That identity of truth, that identity of positive that is itself, as all exceptions in exception nature. So there is simple logic that black people and white people in collusion, but pretending to be against, their arms around that. As victims thinking they're helping too, some. Or most. See, but everyone with their logic has the quote unquote perfect world. Worse than just forsaken. Employed self-valued, criminally foreign influenced application with their federal crimes with evidences and with rules. Our branches of government, originally and still, because of how sickly, distinctly everyone with them, the overt criminal enterprises and themselves, even though they have in other words, their roles with the same breaching method to all locations, areas, states, same uses of identities, all. Because in other words, that's what's spoken. There are things that are true always, and not denying exceptions, not valuing exceptions denied. If you try to, in other words, that slavery is simultaneously, because one identity is a negative relationship to that, increasingly. So it is invisible but still discernible. It is the identity of volume /S that generated everything. And there are there are proofs of it. As I explained, how, for example, those 5/3 identities of sequence nature / simultaneous nature. And what is simultaneous is its itself, its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that. That's why computers have to chase what is simultaneous. That's why computer syntax, all syntax has to be about identities of hardware locations, of locations within locations. A circuit is a trinity. They need all identity of the ground locations, treatments of positive and negative, identities of titles, jobs, people A through Z. Self-valued, criminally foreign influenced, positive treatments, negative treatments, and identity treatments. Self-valued, what you hear through other people, through identities of titles. Investigations, investigators, and vetting identities have a unique role as the victims, per this method that uses them as victim predators in collusion with everything else too. So they're preventing mandated law, having prevented it. They self-value. Every time you hear them saying, oh, the First Amendment, instead of referring to things like free speech and things like that, the surface values, because their roles with worse than just obfuscating, proper sequence treatment of the first sentence of the Constitution. They're worse than just obfuscating and valuing having been obfuscated. How the Constitution was abridged and forced to be. The breaching method had to react to our founding parents' plan, who didn't have free speech. Our founders. The founders of other modern nations had the same phenomenon. The republic for which we stand is a database relationship, is a value/value progression relationship to the concentrated values/values of the Campus Marcia system as the identity of grounds value/value progression system that is native, pure, aware, and how its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that is is the science of evolution, is the science of what causes evolution's fruits and gifts and means from nowhere appearing. It's a positive. It's its identity of relationship to itself, and the increasing value of that, positive or negative, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Law with integrity had an obligation since founding to have discerned the difference between positive as criminal and insidious nature /S, like wrongdoers, wrongdoing, like the syntax styles pretending other. Having pretended other, having valued that, having been, and being. So, then they want to do what? Make things about how people feel. Dishonestly to all locations increasingly. So we have this identity. I don't. There's a domain family that I only know as strangers that were recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by people associated with them. They confirmed roles with vertical and horizontal predicate acts, and with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with people intercities, like 2 Mendez police, and a whole bunch of people tied to the Mendez police. Forging names, switching names, roles with the judges and prosecutors and their family members, with crime methods, with Facebook, and then with the reception, they're pretending courts that are criminally involved with locations crimes and with online crimes can solve their own predicate acts against people's free speech. Their roles attaching simultaneously the news to spread illusions through time. They had Wethersfield, there were a whole bunch of Wethersfield-oriented interbranch families, prosecutors, judges, that are all recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with forging names, switching names, other natures of predicate acts. And their confessions recently over the phone regarding, they sought me out to make confessions regarding their roles with the uses of forging names and switching names. Officers further, and with a Cololo family, they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also by other people tied to them, since they were kids. There was an O'Brien family and other people associated with Central Connecticut State University that has other agencies and agents and their family members and various natures of courts, and that with the police forms, in distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously crime methods, crime natures, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated the FBI uses the right to lie to hide their criminal foreign influences. The police forms will hide their right to lie, to hide criminal. They need to pretend this is overall. They're making allegations against people speaking short truths. Because when they come to interactions with people, they're recorded, confessed, and demonstrated with other police forms, not just through time. It's evidence that through time, correlation nature had means to demonstrate how other identities of the law were in collusion with the sick police. Sick, per the acts and per the methods, not per opinions. They're making allegations against us. They're not supposed to do that. They need to pretend other. They already value that having been. They've been using interbranch locations to fabricate audio and video with a whole bunch of victim predator nations with them. They need to pretend other. They need to hide what they need to pretend to be for religions, because they have that in collusion with the same. They can't defend their takes on it and afford what they're about to be discerned in sequence. The beginning of the Old Testament says all you have to know is up to right here. What do? They make a New Testament, make everyone take positions as liars. Oh, but it's sin. They knew they were going to be handing off the religions to criminal and seditious natures, all identity ground, locations, areas, and states, criminally foreign influenced. Propagated as fact-cheaping nature stuff, positive and negative, relying upon it. Forcing leaders to roles with that. Unwanted. Forced to be self-valued. This is a syntax trap. It's a fact-cheaping nature trap. See, discern how criminal insidious nature is invisible but still discernible. All kinds of criminal insidious nature, they left out all that is evidence that is simultaneous. When you juxtapose awareness of how sickly distinctly the breaching method had employed slavery in the North and in the South. Slavery had employed uses of the identities of surface nations in conjunction to that which is recorded, locations, areas, states, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, criminally foreign influenced. If you say you're involved with any parts of slavery, you're criminally foreign influenced. Your delusion's raw. They want to debate such by leaving out all the proofs of it. They need to, so the identities of the networks, they were propagated as styles of fake sides, contrast, fake alternatives, as rules, crimes, predators, identity thefts and frauds, roles. This is off campuses maintained, on off campuses collusion with prevents integrity of and proper nature of answer/S to all questions, to all needed responses, as all needed responses this way maintained effectively. You have to discern how what is actually recorded, the problem actually recorded, is interages and natures of campuses and of private schooling locations and homeschooling locations maintained used by the same breaching method. Now this is recorded because it was through time. It is distinctly recorded how sickly distinctly the identities of the law pretend not to hear and pretend to be listening to what people are saying, in collusion with that which is preventing them from being heard. What you are trying to say is there was a predicate acts delivery system method leveraged against you. Everyone. Sickly distinctly, individually grouped and together. Because it is exploiting that identity that is the only one with an identity of relationship to itself and the value progression perfect that is inseparable from why and how we are individual grouped and together. Actually, its complete system, its complete systems. See, people that forsake the perfect world, forsaken now and having been forsaken with quality of fact, cheap in nature, they can't afford correlation nature logic with integrity to speak, so they have to value all the like certain. So there's a Danielle Perron, I don't know, she pretended other per a bunch of boyfriends of hers also did this with investigators, investigations and vetting identities in the past relevant to the people, what the people in the background have been who have been fabricating audio and video into databases. They also use the crime methods of where they do this in your face, but they're preventing you a response on paper because they've been switching names, they've been switching sequence, fabricating audio and video in conjunction with everything that is actually recorded, like that which they have people stand near you so you can see your reactions to it. New Britain Superior Court has a Phil Cololo and has 2 Mendez police recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, confirmed, involved with them with predicate acts on and off their location, New Britain Superior Court, and on and off Wethersfield Police Department with these 2 Mendez police. Also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated on and off Fox Connecticut News, roles with predicate acts with the Domain family, and with Allison Mulcahy, I don't know, I think that's her name. I don't know her sister name or her, I never had a conversation with her. She's also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with them with Thaddeus Grabowski and other federal criminal co-defendants of a former director of FBI, Robert Luskin, in a relevant case /S that was ongoing at the time of the plaintiff's death. Further also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with predicate acts with that case and with other cases relevant to their roles with the predicate acts on and off Fox Connecticut News in the buildings downtown Hartford involved with identity thefts, frauds. Now there's a Chris Walters and others who have his mother and stuff connected to as the roles with the evidences with the Washington D.C. and World Trade Center. I never had a conversation with Dan Keene. It was recorded, confessed, and demonstrated that and how my town's police chief and a whole bunch of police associated him with like a Dillon family. A whole bunch of other police that have been forging, switching names, like with a name Sullivan, name McGee. They have been forging names, switching names, roles with fabricating audio and video interbranch, on off child campuses, further with the principal child offenders campus, and others on the child offender registry involved, real or made up, involved with actually recorded juxtaposed natures of organized crime with the little kids. It is also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated that has something to do with how they have foreign and domestic families associated with the Wethersfield Library. And with the school next to it, also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with foreign and domestic medical families and overt criminal enterprises. Also, and various natures of federal criminals involved with identity thefts and vertical, horizontal federal crimes with databases and with wire crimes, and everyone speaking, pretending to be, and with elections, and with elected families. This is how they keep victim predators. This is how they keep the identity of volume we are as a fact sheet nature, as a syntax nature, criminally foreign influence. This is how they keep the identities of the sciences individually grouped in together, maintain self-value, criminally foreign influence. Lie progressions onto all further collusion to all locations already leveraged against each age of fact sheet nature's correlation nature. Each age of fact sheet nature's actually inherent active and progressive means. So we have to be able to report the sequence shifts and the sequence shifting styles that note simultaneously can't afford proper fact sheet nature of the first sentence of the Constitution. So they have to have a debate about that without using, in other words. The reason you feel uncomfortable when the police come up to you, black people who say this on TV, is because of how they've been using the right to lie, exploiting all exceptions in exception nature. And that is self-valued by people doing that now. They self-value that only having been. Victim reactions too long. So now it's victim predator. Now they're just used remotely, easily. So they can't afford correlation they can't afford to have James Madison understood his roles with what the fake counters, the semi-counters, still in collusion against what he was for, that we are for. No, see, they also do this. They leave this out so they can keep people saying, "Oh, well, George Washington held slaves," or whatever. So but they leave out the exceptions in exception nature, which is Marbury versus Madison. For example, they leave out the organized crime influences over the courts that dealt with James Madison and his not experiment. See, it's a victim reaction nature to call it experiment. Everyone does things like that. America is not an experiment. America is a fact sheet in nature, illness ridden, identity of the ground, conjunction /S, as a value progression. That is self-valued systems, tactical ulterior from the one that is only capable of causing positive value nature progressions, action natures, everywhere at once, and are proper to each finite location. And where that has a tie to the value of our fact sheet nature. The value of where and how we are fact sheet nature as value. And value as nature /nature as value. But they can't have logic proper told or understood. So we have experts on logic where we need to have experts on logic, criminally foreign influenced, weaponized, roles with all kinds of natures of organized crime with the identity of the ground because they've been kept needing to hide lie progressions for all the fabrications of audio and video and of all the opinions they already. Every time someone in the news makes opinion, when they get experts to make opinions, those opinions are recorded and involved with organized crime methods juxtaposed by one, leveraged upon all locations, areas, states, preventing people from defenses of themselves as fact sheet nature offensively, valuing that always having been. All exceptions in exception nature are a demonstration of it. So there are a whole bunch of people who went to schools with me that I never had anything to do with, like a Conisalis family. That now there are people also on Highcrest Street. I don't know them. There are people around them like a Cianfaglione family. Recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, confirmed. Well, this is everyone speaking through other people too. No, their roles in confessions, their uses of confessions, interbranch, and people tied to them is evidence. But they're preventing free speech, and they're making allegations against people. No. So that's why it's important. So even though I know what you're saying, of course, the identities of the law are against you, sickly distinctly if you're black. But if you're black, and in other words, including if you want to be part of the identities of the law, that is what I'm talking to you about. Those programs too are also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated and confirmed criminally foreign influenced. And now there's a Casper family. I never had anything to do with. He's involved, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, involved with sequence shifts, identity thefts, frauds, and pretending other. The one exception, which is a location on the Berlin Turnpike. Locations all along the Berlin Turnpike, and people tied to a house that came into with a brother and sister. A brother came into my grade when I was in grammar school. In 4th grade. He was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with a whole bunch of juxtaposed or natures of evidence, organized crime, acts, methods, and roles that O'Brien family and others associated with Central Connecticut State University police forms and federal criminals in other nations had and have roles with. Identity ground locations like shipping places, people involved with mail, UPS, shipping Coca-Cola, has nothing to do. These are all victims. Then they want to defend their identities, pretend people make allegations. AT&T. So in other words, that's why mandated law is supposed to be followed outside of court. Now the people that run the prisons with them are also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with crimes with databases with child campuses. Crime methods where they pretend people, other kids were in fake locations. And they further illusions. They're sequence shifting. The way they have the identity ground role locations used by people by identities of leadership from off campuses, also simultaneously on off campuses, roles with the vetting of fact treatment nature. Integrity. Roles with pretending integrity is what it isn't. Roles with the exploitation of all aspects of the nature of the law while pretending to be about it just because they went to school for it, while pretending to be about logic with integrity just because they went to school for it. Originally and still, the psychology was delusions wrought, criminally foreign influenced. Identities of experts needed, that truth used as a lie. Where they're just fabricating audio and video, delusions wrought, breaching method employed. It's also how they're involved with the crime methods, with the interbranch, kept originally and still needing to hide live progressions from their positions. Dozens of people within the Britain Superior Court alone, and with Hartford courts, are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with Central Connecticut State University and with Trinity College with relevant predicate acts, influenced from off them, and where it is evidence that it has also been on off them self-valued roles. So we also had the investigators, and all vetting identities associated with all natures of them. Even the people that read the languages, that translate the other languages for our country and other nations have to do that. Not by accident. Where and how everyone's roles with what the species working together before sciences became criminally foreign influenced they were able to use and to discern and to self-value the discernment of one identity that is inseparable from, while being as, each finite, active, and progressive identity of value/value progression, further positive or negative to itself, which makes increasingly the relevancy of two identities of sequence/simultaneous nature further, before and after, that are valued now relevant. So there is an and the ident. There's and/each/the identity of value progression. As if the same way there is a cell body, cell nucleus, cell wall, they also have a shared identity. And it is also value a little more than that, as two identities of sequence/simultaneously nature with that. So we have offensively, originally and still, the news media recorded, confessed, and demonstrated that they are aware that their networks have been using the identity of the ground locations for federal crimes that are news-oriented. And they've been using how they make people, with the news programs and with other natures of programs, offensively pretend things and say things so they could so they could cite that as evidences, where and how they're preventing sequence shifts from being told on. And if you try to tell on them, they steal your identity and attach you to fake words, fake audio and video, fake locations, fake natures of ties to other people and to themselves, and fake ties to complete strangers, like a Joshua Julian, also further recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with judges and prosecutors with sexual and medical offenders of kids. That is also relevant to their uses of Facebook policing for this, and of YouTube policing. And it is also relevant to their roles in actually recorded motivations, even though juxtaposed with other natures of motivations. A whole bunch of people with identity thefts of me that are with the locations crimes and crime method roles with the courts, like fake Facebook pages and fake YouTube pages pretending to be me, with Wethersfield interbranch family members. Now these are also military family members associated with a foreign and domestic military associated with a Dillon family. A whole bunch of people with Central Connecticut State University and with Trinity College recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with federal crimes with people on off Franklin Avenue, with overt criminal enterprises, and with people associated with them, with the courts, with federal crimes with them, and with doctors, and with military police. See, now all these military have roles with psychology, delusions, rock, criminally foreign influence. Meanwhile, they want to defend their identities, pretend their integrity. Simultaneously, they need to value further and further the perfect world. Integrity of logic prevented free speech, prevented demonstration of the identity theft/fraud method that American history is really about. It is evidence that and how they have physical delusions and have criminally foreign influence fact treatments with reception of the what is that? The Boston Tea Party, with reception of Southern slavery, with reception of that slavery of everyone, fake sides, fake alternatives, self-valued through another method of motivation that bonded all these other motivations of evil, were used remotely, unceasingly, easily. So there are a whole bunch of people with downtown Hartford. Like there's a Charlie Bowes. I never had a conversation with him in my life. Chris Walters recorded, confessed, and demonstrated and confirmed He has a woman that says is his sister, and his family members and people associated with him are involved with Trinity College and CCSU predicate acts with judges and prosecutors, and with the Kerr family, and with there's an officer, Jerry Miller, and our other officers who recorded, confessed, and demonstrated in the Britain Superior Court Facebook pages and Facebook pages of the campuses are involved with predicate acts with kids with them, and their roles with all kinds of natures of abuses of kids. A whole bunch of boyfriends of the same girl in different contexts, like a Danielle Perron. There's a Mark Violet, and there's a Kevin Caron and Mark Caron. And there are others that are recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts on off Central Connecticut State University through time. That is also roles with them with predicate acts on off the child campuses, and uses of their own kids as victim predators by that method, that breaching method, because there are a whole bunch of other nations. Even the witness protection program is recorded in collusion with the courts involved with that. So there's a Jennifer Smith that is also by a whole bunch of people recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with judges and prosecutors with predicate acts on my street. With the same house, like this Kalila house, is also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by people associated with my town's police chief now and 1 year ago, per their roles with the recorded crime methods that are also relevant and actually recorded, tied to the predicate acts on my street, and the forging names and switching name crime roles, and the evidences of how they prevent demonstration of how recorded actually other agencies and natures of police forms are juxtaposed with our own. They're playing semantics racketeering, rhetoric racketeering, time racketeering. They're getting over all ways too fast, too slow on everyone. They have everyone, for example, individually grouped and together. Achievements of jobs that left and leaves out how that breaching method force sustained worse than just tortures against people. They had the responses to the World Trade Center attack, that they had roles with the seedings of the illusions that pulled it off, that made self-value the counters inclusion, covering it up, keeping it juxtaposed with other natures of motivations and natures and evil, tall locations, and then pretend other. The perfect world's forsaken. So, get me a response for Fox Connecticut News and for WFSB recorded, confessed, and demonstrated confirmed roles with Hartford locations and with Rocky Hill locations that are involved further with juxtaposed natures of organized crime with the kids of each age and nature of campus, including homeschool kids through time. This is what is actually recorded. You're going to see how they recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, used crime methods, judges, where they speak things into records out of the sequence, lying, so they can pretend, because they've been using, the courts are in collusion, uses of time treatments always too fast, too slow, uses of justifications of that from backgrounds that are involved with everything they put on, they allow on paper only criminally foreign influenced, or not, while they're fabricating audio and video. So they have recorded roles. We have, in other words, it is evidence that and how sickly distinctly Barack Obama and Donald Trump don't have free speech and are forced to pretend others simultaneously. And that's forced by the states, location, states, areas, how maintain criminally foreign influence. Long time identities of the law are long time delusions wrought and criminally foreign influence exploited breaching tools, weapons, screens. So there are investigations and vetting identities with the past that recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by a Rick C. Faglione. He's used to like, they know I'm going to walk with this location downtown sometime or somewhere like that. So they have people pretend either both to be your friend and behind your back, and to pretend to be your enemy behind your back, as identity thefts and frauds roles, as roles with predicate acts, with databases, sequence shifts. I had nothing to do with Rick C. Faglione, who's also one of the ones recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with this. I don't know where they moved to, an O'Brien family, or if they're still associated with that house. But there are people they involved growing up with an organized crime, where they would walk around and have conversation with people associated with the intelligence community, spreading illusions to keep them criminally foreign influence exploited. Now they have a whole bunch of people that train the leaderships of the prisons tied to the courts that are involved with criminal uses of the databases of those campuses, like Central Connecticut State University, that has also recorded uses of their identity. They want to debate, they want to pretend they're defending an identity, criminally foreign influence. They're not the identity of Central Connecticut State University. I am. Dean Judd is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, for example, involved with extortion against me, with falsified police reports, with people leading up to the World Trade Center attack, in that context and since. Now these are with courts that use crime methods of forging names and switching names, and switching sequences, and speaking things into records so they can pretend legitimacy and pretend fake recorded things, while they're forging names, switching names roles, juxtaposed natures of drug crime roles. The same people are only allowed to counter it. Not legitimately because they're undercover. They're attaching people to fake ties to drug people, the fake ties to drugs. All exceptions in exception nature exploited by them. Sickly. Now these are the people involved with juxtaposed natures of drug crimes with the Mendez police and with the Domain family on off Fox Connecticut News in downtown Hartford, as roles with predicate acts on off roles that on off the buildings next to them have. There's an Allegro's Cafe, I don't know the guy. He's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with a Faenza family with predicate acts demonstrated, confirmed, recorded on off the state of Connecticut judicial branch offices with him and them. Intercities, Wethersfield, Connecticut, Rocky Hill, Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut, on off the buildings next to Fox Connecticut News with the same ones. And with their roles with body dumping spots and his confessions online tied to their lies about what was actually recorded online. Till his confirmation of it online. One of the Faenza family members that are involved. And a whole bunch of other ones I don't know tied to them. Also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles of people from Rhode Island police forms, overt criminal enterprises. Not per the way they have them grouped. They have overt criminal private, the overt the way they have them grouped, and the database relationships all in collusion. They're kept needing to hide the same sequence shift. They have the black and white identities as victim predators, delusions wrought, simultaneously incapable of defending their takes on the law and on identity, and of affording the identity theft / fraud unceasingly, increasingly upon black people from being told on. They need to pretend other. So they need to pretend they're black so they understand something that other white people don't. And the reason white people don't understand is because we have white-black collusion. We have KKK-themed, Confederate flag-themed military families involved with the evidences recorded leading up to the World Trade Center attack. See, these are locations crime because they bring the sequence / simultaneous nature before their interbranch locations so they can fabricate more audio and video per their needs to, motivated by their roles with the vertical and horizontal organized crime method. That already kept that. To already keep each identity of investigator, each method of it, employed criminally foreign influenced, self-valued, but what is sustained without locations. This is bonded for them. Even though it's bonded through other natures of motivations of evil, there are all kinds of motivations that keep the overt criminal enterprises, that keep the private ones in the interbranch government, the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the political branch. This is how they are an identity of volume /S. The same way, and by the same identity, that all three of those parts of the cell body share. They don't really follow, in other words, we have all kinds of medical roles, medical families roles with identity thefts, frauds. And then they self-value that. Everyone's speaking through others. See, we have to counter the court's criminal uses of them. But we have to counter them sickly, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. We have to have mandated law followed. We have to have rules, crimes countered. You have people, they have this narrative like you can go into court and you could have a trial. They have even the trials. All treatments of true or false. All time treatments employed. You're supposed to pretend you don't realize a whole bunch of things that are inseparable from subjects. See, they're an identity of negative value nature progression. An identity of positive value nature progression are individuals, groups, and species as an identity of positive value nature progression. We don't leave out exceptions in exception nature when we bring up a subject, where and how by nature we are forced to separate subjects. They exploit that and leave out in other words, they're preventing our short words. I asked to have a response for the interbranch forging names, switching names, federal crime method uses also of Facebook and of YouTube, fake accounts pretending to be me, as people recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with New Britain Superior Court and with Hartford and with Wethersfield Police Station, with them, with a whole bunch of other police stations and police forums, recorded involved with predicate acts with them, fabricating audio and video, identity thefts, frauds, wire crimes, mail crimes. These are the people that have been putting little kids in jails. These are people that have been roles with force sustained organized crime methods bonded against them everywhere they're not, where their parents weren't watching them. And their parents had that done to them before that happened. Every time they say, oh, they're good people or bad people, they're doing that criminally. They are preventing mandated law. So we have a problem. So respond for CNN America, and respond for Fox Connecticut News, and respond for WFSB, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with the people that are advertising timed ad placements of the networks also, with their uses of their sense and sensibilities, for example, recorded using Jane Austen's, I'm not just using that phrase, criminally foreign influenced, delusions raw, and victims with aggression and victims with care, as criminal and seditious natures and as roles with uses of that. So let's get the name of this officer named Sullivan, a new Sullivan now. There are ones on Park Street. There's a Sullivan family associated with a place on Park Street that is also involved with various nature, with New Britain Superior Court and with Hartford courts, with investigations, and with child programs. They have the Boy Scouts, they have the Girl Scouts, involved with everyone with this crime method that has even coaches of teams. That, in other words, rolls with identity theft frauds.